Welcome to the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. This evening, we have on one of our favorite guests. He is the host or the co-host of the Dynasty Warzone podcast, which if that's not in your repertoire, fix your life and get it in your repertoire because him and Jerry St. Clair, I think you guys have done, like 1,000 episodes by this point? At least 800. It was 800 the last time I checked. So we have Memphis Young from the Dynasty Warzone podcast with us this evening to play a little Dynasty buy, sell, hold. Memphis, how's it going?
It's going great. And, it's funny. I know this because I just posted our 900th episode.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
we've been doing this for going on, it'll be 8 full years in July. We're wrapping up year 8. And so, but we've had a lot of guys who do other shows on our network. We have some guys, they do a show called the Dynasty Front Office. It's I won't say games, but they do like let's make a deal, trades. And then we have a guy named Dallas Hyder who does rookie content for us. So when those guys put out content, obviously the Dynasty Warzone channel gets credit. But I'd say Jerry and I have probably done in the neighborhood together. Well, not necessarily together. Jerry often takes time off. We have done like a straight Dynasty Warzone shows, probably 600 or 700.
Still, I mean, that's,
Dude,
I don't know how
1,000.
that's possible. I don't know how that's like if you do the math, if you do some quick back in the napkin math here, 600, 700 shows. I mean, if you do one a week, that's some years. That's some years you're putting up there.
We had some runs where, and then I also did a gambling show for a while, and then I brought a gambling show over to Player Profiler, and that's the thing. It's like you can still listen to the Dynasty Warzone if you listen to Player Profiler, but if you want to get the Dynasty Warzone and some of the other shows because you're looking for some new podcasts to add, that's where the Dynasty Front Office comes in. They drop every Saturday, and then Dallas is he's a young man about town. He's literally a rocket scientist. That's what he does. He is an engineer who works for NASA, who also loves Dynasty fantasy football and rookie content. So when he's not doing that, he's he's powering up rockets. Maybe he'll go work for Elon. I don't know.
Nice. So he and Matt Patricia, I mean, best friends? Or?
Well, Dallas would never use a pencil behind his ear while carrying a laminated sheet of paper.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Smart enough to know better.
Yeah, that is true. Like, why the pencil?
Like you get Nick Sirianni. He always had like the highlighter or the Sharpie behind his ear. Mm-hmm. That works with a laminated play sheet. And I get why it's laminated. Sometimes you play in the rain, the elements, snow, what have you. So I get it, but not like a golf pencil and not even one with an eraser. It's like, did you play 9 holes before you go to work and you just felt like stealing the little pencil on the steering wheel of the cart?
Yeah. Matt Patricia. Anyway, I mean, I don't know what's worse, Matt Patricia or Matt Eberflus. It's with the Matts, I don't know. But at least Matt Eberflus didn't have a pencil or a writing utensil anywhere in his ear, but he did have nice hair towards the end. But Memphis, you are gonna be going to the scouting combine tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, as we record, I'm going on Friday. I could only get away for one day. And it made the most sense. The quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers are going to be at the podiums. So going to go around and try to interact and get some Player Profiler exclusives to put back on the big show. And then we'll be doing a full recap this weekend. But yeah, I wish you guys were going too. We all went to the draft.
Yeah, we were at the draft in Detroit. Well, Matt Babbage wasn't there.
2/3 of us were at the draft.
2/3 of us were at the draft.
There was a seat for Harry Snowman, but not me. So we'll maybe another
no, year. I have to push. Not this year. There was no seat for Harry Snowman in 2024, but in 2023 there was. I think. I don't know, but so the combine is taking place right now. This episode will come out on Friday when Memphis is at the combine. So Memphis, we haven't had a chance to talk rookies with you. Literally, we've done everything but talk rookie. Well, we kind of talked rookies before the show, but what's your vibe with this class? You've been doing this a long time. Are you excited? Are you a little disappointed? Like, where do you fall on this rookie hype cycle that it's really starting to pick up? And the combine is really the rocket fuel that propels this thing going forward into rookie season.
I love rookie time of the year. This class is okay. I play a lot of super flex. I'm assuming you guys play a lot of super flex as well. Not a super great quarterback class. Arguably the best running back class we've seen in a while. And I think the position that'll go crazy, everybody talks about the running backs. I think people will go crazy with the tight ends because you got Colston Loveland, you've got Tyler Warren, and then you got Harold Fanning Jr. So I don't know if you guys were playing in 2017, but they had that class of David Njoku, OJ Howard, and Evan Ingram. And that was a big tight end premium year for me. So I think that could be good. I will say this, and I said this on my own show, so I will say it on your show. It feels super lazy to say it this way, but this class, with the exception of Ashton Jeanty, feels very landing spot dependent. Like, we've seen how Sean Payton uses a tight end, right? We all remember Jimmy Graham with Drew Brees and the Saints. Like, how excited, nipples across the Dynasty world would be rock hard if Tyler Warren wound up in Denver with Sean Payton. We've seen Sean Payton use running backs, whether it's Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. If he selects his guy, because Javonte Williams is a free agent, we're going to love that guy. And even if you're an Omarion Hampton guy, more on him shortly, but if Caleb Johnson goes to Denver or Caleb Johnson goes to LA with the Chargers, you've really got to factor that into your equation this year because, the Podfather likes the Alfred Morris corollary. I'm now calling it the Bo Nix corollary. Nobody was excited about Bo Nix, but he landed in a great spot with the perfect head coach and the perfect offense, and he went out and had a QB1 season. So if we can get the right combination and the coaches are really behind these guys, then there's stuff to be excited about. I'll get more excited about guys once they land in certain places. But for now, we can just use the combine, get some performance-based metrics to go with the stats that these guys put up in college. I will say I'm a little bummed out by the wide receiver class. I'm not sure Travis Hunter, the best wide receiver in the class, is going to play wide receiver, at least not to the point to where he would be dynasty relevant. And then everybody else is kind of, I see really good things, and then I don't know. I'm kind of, speculative. Like Jerry, God bless him, he said Tet McMillan kind of reminded him of Cortland Sutton. And that's not bad. Cortland Sutton's a nice wide receiver too. He's going to give you 13.5 PPR points a game. But does that really get you super excited to be dropping the 103 on him in a 1 QB league? Doesn't for me. So we'll see where these guys go, what the draft capital looks like. We still have a lot more questions than answers. Is that a fair way to put it?
I think that is a very measured, very responsible answer. You can tell you have done 600 shows or 700 shows with Jerry because, yeah, I think the temptation is every rookie season to kind of lose your mind and, everybody turns on the YouTube highlights. Hopefully they turn on the film. But everybody's looking at the YouTube highlights this time of year. If you're in the dynasty space and you get, it's easy to get excited and it's easy to get overexcited about these guys. But yeah, I feel like that's a responsible answer because the running backs are the strength of this class, but I agree with you. The landing spot's going to be huge for some of them, especially somebody like Caleb Johnson, I think. But the good news is there's a lot of good spots available, in the first round, especially in the second round. There's a lot of teams like Dallas. You mentioned the Broncos, the Chargers, Minnesota. The list goes on and on. So the chances of these guys hitting with these good landing spots is really high. So I'll get into some more specifics. And you mentioned Omarion Hampton, so I'll just give away the question here. You have down, or the question was going to be, who's one player you're all in on this rookie season or for this rookie class? And your answer is Omarion Hampton. So why Omarion Hampton? What makes you so excited about him?
Kind of for the same reason why I like Caleb Johnson is when Drake May left. Well, I'll just throw it back to Caleb for a second. The offense sucked. Caleb Johnson was the offense. If you're a defensive coordinator and you're driving to go play the Iowa Hawkeyes on a Saturday afternoon, who are you worried about? Who are you building your game plan against? It's going to be Caleb Johnson. Same thing with Omarion Hampton. The only difference for me, and they're 2A and 2B for me, obviously Ashton, Jeanty, 101, all formats, write it down. I said it weeks ago that's where we're at. But I like the fact that he has a track background. And I know it seems like a small thing. I like his size. To me, he's very comparable to Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor, I almost put him on, we're going to do buy, sell, and hold here in just a minute. I almost put him on my buy list because he played 14 games last year and he averaged like 17 points a game. And that's the upside. And that's with bad quarterback play. That's the kind of upside that I could see a guy like Omarion Hampton. Like, I don't want to get into hyperbolics because I think that's how you do 700 shows. But I would say that if Omarion Hampton lands one of those really premium landing spots in any running back, again, LA with the Chargers or Denver with the Broncos, the Cowboys, all these spots, day 2 running backs this year, not just Omarion Hampton, guys drafted in that second and third round, they're going to change the dynasty landscape. Because Jerry and I just did our running back rankings for our patrons. And I'm telling you, you get past the first 5 or 6 guys, it's kind of a wasteland at the running back position. What do you think? Who's your number 2? Matt? I'll throw it to Matt. He's over there quietly, drinking a beverage and so who's who? Oh, tea, of course. It's an evening beverage. Who is your guy? Who's your number 2?
My RB2 is very clearly Omarion Hampton so far.
That's what I'm talking about.
It just from the film to the the stats, what you call it, the production and the prospect profile. It seems he's much closer to Jeanty than he is to these other backs. I was very high on Caleb Johnson, and recently on our last episode, Seth kind of pointed out some of the flaws in Caleb Johnson. I then went to the game film to say, okay, Seth saw something that I should be on the lookout for. And Seth, that pass pro is just atrocious. It's very bad. And he's certainly not an incapable pass catcher, but not to the degree that Omarion Hampton's going to be able to be utilized. We look for that bell cow back, and sure, maybe a dying breed, but we get running backs every year into this class, or nearly every year, that come close to fitting that mold, or at least as close as you can get to say that is a high percentage bet. And Omarion Hampton checks all those boxes for me.
Yeah, no, he's very clearly my RB2 as well. I know some people are trying to sneak, and I love Trevion Henderson. Some people are trying to sneak him up there into RB2 land, and Caleb Johnson, same story, but that's pretty. We've been pretty steadfast here on the Dynasty Roundtable. Jeanty and Omarion Hampton have been our RB1 and RB2 since we started doing these rookie mock drafts. Probably way too early, back in November, I think, was when we did our first one. Matt, is that right?
Yeah, it was before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't know. Let us know, chat. Is rookie mock drafts in November a good idea? Maybe, probably. Who knows? But yeah. Matt, take it away.
So that was Memphis's answer for the player he's all in on in this rookie class, correct?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
neither. I'm going to kick it back to you. Because neither of us have given our thoughts on this question yet.
Oh, okay. Is that what I guess we were supposed to give our input too? I didn't.
It's a round table.
It's your show. I think the people tune in because they want to know who your guys' most intriguing or favorite prospect is, or you're all in on?
Oh yeah. I'll go ahead and say, man, there's so many good choices, but I made a short about this guy, and he's my RB3 in the class. But Trevion Henderson, if he hits, he could hit really big. You talk about just about everything you want from a fantasy running back. I mean, he's fast. He's big enough. He's not super big. He's not like the other running backs in this class, like 220 Omari and Hampton. But he's 208. Maybe 210. We'll see what. I don't know if they've weighed in yet or not. I think they weigh in tomorrow. But from a pass catching perspective, he's really good. I think he has really good vision. I think he's better than people think in pass protection as well. Just from what I've watched, and I've watched 3 full games of him thus far. If I miss out on Jeanty, and I probably will because I don't have too many 101s. If I miss out on Omari and Hampton, because I probably will, because he's probably going to go in the early first round. If Trevion Henderson is sitting there in the middle, maybe even late first round, I mean, it's possible. Luther Burden might go ahead of him. Emeka Egbuka, who knows? Who knows how that middle to back half of the first round is going to shake out? But I'm really hoping Trevion Henderson's in that neighborhood, because if he is, I'm going to be taking him quite a bit because I think he has a ton of upside. So, Matt Babbage, what about you, my friend?
So for me, this was a player I was really excited about going into last year. Thought after a 1,200-yard season he might come out, but decided to wait another year. Missouri had an incredible season in 2023, overperformed. 2024 took a little bit of a step back, but certainly wasn't Luther Burden's fault that offense took a step back. They had a quarterback that is not very good. That team as a whole overperformed, lost some seniors, had expectations in 2024, which is a big difference maker for some of these mid-tier teams that are overranked. You rank Missouri at 10. We saw what happens when the spotlight's actually on him. But when the spotlight's on Luther Burden, he does shine. And I've seen a lot of comps to Deebo Samuel. And look, I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I don't see it. I'll just put it that way. I've never once watched Luther Burden and thought, oh, that looks like Deebo Samuel out there. Truly, I think he looks closer to Stephon Diggs and the way he looked at Maryland than he does to a Deebo Samuel type. I think he has plenty to offer on both the outside and the slot. I think, as I've said multiple times in the podcast, he does fit better in an offense that has a true alpha, because I don't think that is particularly his archetype. But let's think like Devonta Smith too, like an incredibly valuable 1B that could be the 1A, but maybe not for a sustained period of time, seeing really good number 1 corners week in, week out. Luther Burden has a ton of upside to offer, could easily be a top 24 receiver asset. And based on his projected draft capital, there is plenty of landing spots that could be beneficial. I don't think he's landing spot proof. I will say that, but I think there are plenty of landing spots that could increase his value.
I will say Luther Burden is my wide receiver today, because I'm assuming Travis Hunter's never going to be a full-time wide receiver. He's my wide receiver 1. I liked it, and I know people like Tet McMillan, and I know there's some Abuka love out there, and that's super duper. But I just think Burden wins the way that wide receivers win. He's really good over the middle of the field, a lot of crossers, a lot of slots, double move type guy, but he's a better route runner than Deebo. If you physically want to compare him to Deebo, okay, I'll hear you. But he's a better route runner probably today than Deebo Samuel ever has been. Like, Deebo's always been kind of a gadget guy. Luther Burden can run routes. And that's the one thing that I look for. And that's the thing that I give Abuka. And I don't want to say I have Tet third, but how many of those big body 6'4" clashers have dominated since the day of Calvin Johnson and Dez Bryant? The guys that rule the NFL and the way the game's played now, it's Jamar Chase, it's Justin Jefferson, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who's the closest of those guys that fits this? If you say Ibuka, okay, fine, whatever, because I've heard some nice Terry McLaurin comps to Ibuka, so I can live with that. But yeah, Luther Burden, I had to jump in because me and Matt, with ties to the Hoosier State, we're clearly sharing a lot of our favorite guys because Omarion Hampton, Luther Burden, I'm there with you, brother.
Well, interestingly enough, I think I'm a little, foreshadowing here. I think I'm a little bit more in on this next prospect on this list here. So tell us about a player you're unsure of and convince me why I should be a little bit more skeptical about the player you're about to speak of.
Well, the reason why I'm skeptical of Cam Ward is probably because I'm somewhat of a jaded Colts fan. I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, and I remember Anthony Richardson was a prospect with a lot of talent, a big arm, and it hasn't translated. And I'm sitting here and I'm using player profiler rankings of wide receivers, and I'm looking at guys like, which of these guys were a project that hit? I mean, if you want to give me Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, okay. But outside of that, most of the guys, Patrick Mahomes, pretty good right out of the gate. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, even Jaden Daniels as a rookie, CJ Stroud as a rookie. I just don't really feel super comfortable with a guy that, I'll be honest, I don't want to say that Cam Ward's Bo Nix, but much like Bo Nix, he needs to land in a really good spot. Like if he were to land in, he needs that offensive mind. He needs that coach that can build the system around him. And that doesn't always work because, the Colts have Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen's great as a quarterback and a play caller, quarterback coach, because Justin Herbert had his best statistical year under Shane Steichen. Jalen Hurts had his best career passing season under Shane Steichen. So even if you do get with a good coach, it doesn't always work out. Love the talent, love the size, love the arm. There's a lot of things to love. But, man, I can't get super fired up about the quarterback one in Tennessee. I'm not sure that Callahan's a great coach and great play caller for him. Not a lot of weapons to really lean on down there. It doesn't feel like a blueprint of success. Now, maybe if he lands in Cleveland, where you got Jerry Jeudy, I'm drawing a blank on their other wide receiver.
Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore's a free agent. There was one other, and I'm drawing a blank. I'll search it. But
Cedric Tillman.
Thank you. That was the other guy. So it's landing spot's not everything, but I have more questions than answers. Like I said, I used that phrasing earlier. So it seems like you like him, Matt. What are you seeing that I'm missing? Maybe
it's not. I don't think it's necessarily what I see. It's more of I have always stood on the podium of I am not a quarterback evaluator under any circumstance.
Well, so very few of us, and I say us that do Dynasty in the real NFL, these guys miss all the time. I'm talking to you, Chris Ballard. These guys miss all the time. So none of us are.
But I don't hate the landing spot in Tennessee, actually. Like we talked, Seth and I talked about Brian Callahan, and maybe we're giving him too much credit, which is entirely possible, but certainly around and playing a role in that Cincinnati offense that I believe he was still a part of that organization when they went to the Super Bowl. So playing a hand, or at least having that spectator view of developing a guy like Joe Burrow and forming that offense. And you take a look at Tennessee. I like Calvin Ridley still. I was not aboard the hype train, a couple years back when he was in Jacksonville, but I still think he's a fine talent. Certainly looked at, when we looked at Tennessee and Will Levis, he looked like he could still be, a serviceable number one. You get a decent guy in the second round, like maybe you can I don't know. Do they have their second round pick? You could potentially get a guy like Trey Harris if you could luck out, or, wait on Xavier Restrepo maybe. I don't know. But there are ways to build that offense up. Chigakonkwo took a step forward last year. You have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears in the backfield. All that to say, I think they're are worse landing spots. I actually think Cleveland is potentially a worse landing spot than Tennessee, in my opinion.
Really? You think Cleveland's worse than Tennessee?
I do. I
Yeah.
think it's a broken situation there until Deshaun Watson is not in the building anymore. Their offensive line is terrible. Their defense is abhorrent. Their pass catchers, I can't sit here and say with a straight face that I think the pass catchers are definitively better than Tennessee's.
Am I allowed to make a bold prediction right here on the Dynasty Roundtable?
Please.
Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans this year. The Tennessee Titans will either go with a defensive lineman like Abdul Carter, or they'll maybe trade back because there's word on the street that Cleveland is really in love with Cam Ward. And Aaron Rodgers, who owns a home in Tennessee in the Nashville area, a very winnable division. Well, the weather's not great, but the weather's not horrible for a California guy. I mean, it's the Colts who haven't been very good, the Jaguars who haven't been very good, the Texans who have been good but have not looked like world beaters by any means or measures. I could see this with a new GM bringing in a guy like, and maybe they draft a guy in the second round or the third round or the fourth round, and then they maybe get a young guy to sit behind Rodgers. But on the Dynasty Roundtable, I'm saying Aaron Rodgers, the 2025 quarterback of the Tennessee Titans.
Makes a lot of sense. I like it. Can I say that this quarterback class gives me the vibes of the Kenny Pickett class of quarterbacks? Is that fair of me to say? I mean,
who's your Malik Willis? Who's your Malik Willis in this class? Then
Shedeur Sanders. I don't know.
Oh man,
I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not. The more I watch, the more I'm like, man, Shedeur Sanders takes a lot of sacks, and this is the problem that Caleb Williams had this year, playing with a Bears team that had bad offensive line. The offensive line was bad, but Caleb Williams was holding on to that ball far too long, doing those loop-de-loops that he was able to get away with at USC, but. Like I watched it every week. It's like sometimes this is the same problem Justin had. Just throw the ball, man. Get rid of it when you have to. But I foresee the same thing with Shedeur Sanders, and I don't know. I'm probably going to be wrong, and he's probably going to get taken in the top 10 somewhere. That's probably going to happen. But it also wouldn't shock me if we're sitting there on draft night. Maybe it's somewhere in between. Maybe it's like a Dwayne Haskins type, middle of the first round. He falls a little bit further than we think, but I don't know. I'm just not. If I were an NFL team in the top 10, I'd be very afraid of taking Shedeur Sanders. But that's my answer.
The perfect spot, especially for Cam Ward, given Brian Daboll's success with Josh Allen in Buffalo, would be New York, because New York, depending on who they get as a quarterback, like they're rumored to be in the Matt Stafford sweepstakes, they're interested. That's a good young offense. It's a good young nucleus of guys. When you really peel it back, Malik Neighbors has the earmarks of a true wide receiver one. Like Wan'Dale Robinson. By the way, if you want to win a bar bet, go ask your friend to name which of the Giants wide receivers were top 10 in the NFL in targets last year. No one's getting Wan'Dale Robinson. You have Theo Johnson in his sophomore season, and you have Tyron Tracy in his sophomore season. They could use some help on the offensive line, but given there's a history of success, that's a spot that I don't think Shedeur goes past. Because I think there's something about the Mara family that would love nothing more than to have Deion Sanders and his son sticking it to Uncle Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So while I agree I have a lot more questions with Shedeur Sanders. I think he'll be okay, but yeah, I just wanted to throw out the Giants as a good landing spot for one of these guys.
Yeah, that's where Matt and I are really hoping that that's not where Travis Hunter goes, because that would almost guarantee that he's a corner, you would think, with them already having Malik Neighbors, unless they want just the most insane wide receiver duo, young wide receiver duo in the NFL potentially, but that's probably not going to be how they utilize him. Matt, what are your thoughts here? Chime in. Who's somebody that you're not as high on as maybe consensus.
So it's tough because I feel like the easy answer is either of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, Memphis and I already took those two easy answers from you.
And then once you get outside of the first round, it's like I don't know if anyone's like clamoring for guys like Devin Neal, Xavier Restrepo, like Tyler Ward. I'm kind of going all over the place and with naming some of these guys, but it seems like the consensus is there's a lot of questions around a lot of these guys. And to Memphis's point, like it's landing spot dependent. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and somebody who I've been doing some research on and getting a little concerned about, granted, I think his cost is going to be worth the risk, is Harold Fannin. So everyone's talked about his production, and I think that speaks for itself at this point. What he did at Bowling Green, what he did against actual defenses in Penn State and Texas A&M. But what I want to talk about is his fit in an NFL offense. And a follow of mine on Twitter, Max Toscano, he's very big into tight ends. He's a tight end guy. And he's been going off on what he thinks about Harold Fannin, and his size and his blocking repertoire to him, and he makes great points, are big problems. To the degree of the reason why like an Isaiah Likely doesn't get used to the degree that we want him to, because his limitations make you have to pick certain packages that he fits in. And as we know, they're more pass heavy packages, but these offenses, they're running plays out of so many formations. And if you can't be a consistent player, like Brock Bowers can be on the field, Trey McBride can be on the field any given play. And so his worry at 6'3", a pretty small tight end, is that Harold Fannin doesn't have the actual physical tools to be an every down tight end, and that puts you in a dangerous territory. And if you're not going to be an every down guy, like even guys like Dalton Kincaid, who are always on the field getting targets at a decent rate, still aren't producing. So if you're telling me that Harold Fannin is on the path to being an Isaiah Likely, and that almost torches all of the upside if he can't be a true every down player. So I'm starting to wonder a lot on whether or not I'm going to be taking shots on Harold Fannin.
Yeah. I like him. He kind of reminds me of Jonnu Smith, but I totally get it. Like the small school guy, like there are a lot of questions with him as well. But I think, and I could be totally wrong on this, because who knows where these guys are going to get taken in the NFL draft. I mean, it's rumor season. The rumors are flying that a bunch of these tight ends are going to go in round 2. And if he goes in round 2, I mean, forget about it. But I don't think the cost is going to be all that crazy with him. I don't think so.
Agreed.
That's where I think where it might be, it might be wise to take some shares of him, especially if he's going like late second rounds of a Superflex rookie draft, maybe early third round. Again, who knows? But that's just kind of my guess, because we have Arroyo had a great Senior Bowl, and obviously we got Loveland and Tyler Warren up there. So Memphis, what do you think? Do you have an opinion on Fannin? What do you think here?
I like him, but I think he's going to be a guy I get a lot of in the second round of tight end premium leagues, because I am so not down, but I'm so not excited about this wide receiver class. And to your point earlier, it's so hard to get the right wide receiver, or excuse me, the right tight end. So if I'm between, chasing down a guy like, I don't know, Isaiah Bond or maybe a Trey Harris or Harold Fanning, I'm just gonna lean Harold Fanning. So he's a guy that I'm probably gonna have a lot of. I think he's a guy who could get steamed up if he has a really good combine, because there's already some hype on him. And if he comes in and is like the uber athlete and he runs very fast for the tight end position and he measures out good, I saw him listed at 6'4", 230. So if he comes in around that type of measurement, which I think they may have already measured, I have not been on Twitter today, but Now, I could see him gaining some steam, but I'm not going to be afraid to speculate, especially like if he lands in a good spot. Like Cincinnati, if Cincinnati doesn't, I know they have Eric All, and a lot of people like him. I like him too, but this is the place like the Rams. The Rams need a tight end. They need to replace Tyler Higbee Jr. Chargers need a tight end. Just anywhere where like they need a tight end and he could get some production, that's going to drive up his value. So I'm not necessarily his biggest fan, but I do like him.
Yeah. So good rookie conversation, and I hope you have a great time at the NFL Combine. But I think now's the time to play a little Dynasty buy, sell, or hold. So we each have written down some nominees, and I'm gonna let our guest nominate whoever he wants to at the start for us to throw over to the round table. So Memphis, take it away. Who's your first player that you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I went through because like with buys, like I look at them as one of two ways. They're either a value buy, they're a person that you can draft or get or acquire via trade, and their ADP or value is less than their historical performance. And that's going to be the guy I focus on. And then there are speculative buys. My speculative buy would have been Jalen Waddle. You know, Tyreek Hill's 31 years old. I think he turns 32 in season. He says he's wanted out of Miami. It's very possible. And if that happens, who becomes the target hog in that offense almost exclusively? It's Jalen Waddle. His stock's never been lower since he was a rookie in the league. That's a speculative buy. The actual buy that I'm buying, because again, I mentioned earlier, play a ton of Superflex, is going to be Trevor Lawrence. And I know people have been burned by Trevor Lawrence because kind of like Caleb Williams, he came out as this quote unquote generational prospect. But with Trevor Lawrence, so he only played 9 weeks last year. And if you go weeks 1 through 9, the week he got hurt, he was QB 11 on the season, averaging 16 points a game. Last year, played pretty much the whole season, finished the season as QB 12, 16 points a game. That was more than Baker that in 2023, but more than Tua and more than Joe Burrow in 2023. And in 2022, he finished as QB 7. And he averaged 17.4 PPR points, and PPR doesn't matter with quarterbacks, but 17 points a game. QB 7. They brought in Liam Cohen, who I think is a good offensive coordinator. Baker coming off of a career year under Liam Cohen. Got Brian Thomas Jr., still have Evan Ingram. Maybe they add Gabe Davis, the corpse thereof. Little Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. I think Trevor Lawrence, I think if you wanted to knock him for his health, I would be cool with that. But currently, per player profiler and fantasy pros, I like to, don't want to give all the love to fantasy or to player profiler. Both sites have him as QB 17. So if you want a QB that can statistically finish the season, is he going to win you a week? Very rarely. But is he going to be a solid quarterback that's like a QB 2-3 that has like QB 1 on a season upside? It's Trevor Lawrence. And people are kind of over him, so now's a good time to buy because the market is down. What do you think when you hear Trevor? I know you hear the beautiful hair, and he's a Jaguar, so that takes some shine off of him. But I see you smiling there, Seth. What do you think about my Trevor Lawrence?
I love it because I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut right now, and albeit not perfect, it's kind of, the pulse of the Dynasty community. I think there's a perfect trade out there that you can make, and you can cash out some of this unknown value and get some known value. And I'll throw this to you guys, and you tell me if I'm crazy. There's 2 players that are ranked back to back. There's Michael Penix Jr. and there's Trevor Lawrence, and we have really no idea if Michael Penix Jr. is good. Like what did he play? Like 2 games? Maybe.
And one of them he barely had, like, I think it was just over 50% completion. And he was a rookie and he got thrown in at the last minute. I'll tell you another one, and this might sound like Dynasty blasphemy. I mean, what can you get on top of Trevor Lawrence if you were to send CJ Stroud?
Oh, that's
the moon.
Perfect. That's a perfect.
A puppy. Someone's firstborn, not yours, Seth. Congratulations on being a new dad. But you see what I'm saying. again, this is where I take the emotion out of it and treat these guys kind of like business, like they're widgets. I'm just looking at it like he's a guy who's going to give me 16 or 17 fantasy points a game. And if, let's say CJ Stroud gives you 17 and a half or 18, okay, but what am I getting from that other piece, whether it be a first round pick or maybe another, like a Terry McLaurin? Can I get Terry McLaurin and Trevor Lawrence for CJ Stroud? You probably could. DJ Moore. Of course you can. And then I just added a bunch more points to my lineup. And so maybe I gave up a quote unquote point a game. Okay. But it's not like CJ Stroud, some Josh Allen runner that's going to put up 12 touchdowns. Yeah. So those are the kind of things that I think of when it's buying season, because I'm not buying hype, I'm buying points. So that's kind of how I look at these things.
Even Matt, if you want to think about like smaller upgrades, like can't we agree that Brock Purdy seems like the perfect asset to try and move on, like a passing ship with Trevor Lawrence? San Francisco's getting older, continuing, we see what happens when the production of that offense when Christian McCaffrey's not there and Trent Williams isn't there. Debo's another year older. Yeah.
Well, Debo's likely not to be there. Like if you're looking for some other guys, just
true, they're going to trade him probably.
Yeah. Well, John Lynch said at the combine, he said that Debo is looking for a trade, and we're looking to honor that request. Read between the lines. If you want to go out and get some Ricky Pearsall or Jawan Jennings because Brandon Ayuk's going to start the season on the pup more than likely because of his knee that got exploded in like week 7. Now's a good time. I don't think that's a bad one either, because you look and it's QB 13 on both sites. That's where Brock Purdy is. Can I get anything? Can I get a second? Can I send you Trevor Lawrence? I'm sorry. Can I send you Brock Purdy in a second for Trevor Lawrence and a first? Hey, we're just flipping rounds, but to get in the first round of a super flex league, as you guys know, makes all the thing. I think Purdy's fine. And I hadn't thought about it that way because, you start losing Debo, and then is McCaffrey ever going to be healthy? Who's the running? A lot more can go right, I guess, for Trevor Lawrence, and Brock Purdy's going to be fine. But yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So I think we're all buy on Trevor Lawrence. I again, like just where he is on keep trade cut. Like I love the CJ Stroud. I love tearing down to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you said it. You could get a lot on top of Trevor Lawrence for CJ Stroud. So Matt, who's your first guy that you want to nominate here for the buy, sell, hold portion? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I kind of stole your format with what you led off with in the sheet. We like to talk about first round picks and everything, but I want to know what you two feel about early second round picks. Like, how bad do we want to have part of this second round of this draft? Because in my opinion, right now at the peak of this cycle, as we near, I should say, the peak of this cycle, I personally would be looking to either tier down and, either move second round picks for known commodities, trade back, try and get capital in a future draft, or try and leverage that pick to move up into the first, which can be probably the most difficult of the three. But I start to look outside of the top 12 prospects, especially when we get in like 1 QB non-tight end premium leagues. The early second round here, it can dry up really quick. And going back to Memphis's point at the beginning of the show, very landing spot dependent. There is a situation, and it's probably because you should wait for the draft. So it's probably most wise to just hold and see what happens here. There's always going to be people who are eager for rookies no matter what happens with the draft. But as of right now, I am leaning towards attempting to sell early second round picks. What say you?
Well, I can jump in on this one if you want, Seth. Like I'm looking at Player Profiler right now and prospects, and this is 1 QB. You're looking at Ollie Gordon would be your quote unquote 201, Devin Neal, your 202, Dylan Sampson, your 203, Woody Marks, your 204, and then Trey Harris, your 205. If I can get in that spot, Yes, please. That's where I want to be. From a dynasty standpoint, I've always been a draft running backs, trade for wide receivers, because the NCAA is always going to give us a lot of them. This is a great year to strike when the running back iron is hot. The running back position is more in vogue than it's been in a long time. Look at Derrick Henry. Look at Saquon Barkley. Look at how teams are featuring the running back again. It's a copycat league. We're going to see more of this. So if there's ever an opportunity to stack a couple of those guys, and I'll ask you, Seth, it's usually like two spots, but the perception is the gap between the 202 and the 111, to most people in their minds, like, psychologically, it's like the Grand Canyon. It's like it's two dudes. There's going to be two dudes who go, and if you're like a tier-based drafter, which I am, I think you guys might be too, I'm fine to let you go up to 111 and let someone fall to me and take something in return for that favor. What say you, Seth?
Yeah, no, in most years I would I'd probably agree with you, Matt. I'd probably say, yeah, I'm looking to hold those rookie picks, and I'm looking to maximize their value in whatever way possible. If that means trading for a veteran, yes. If that means holding them and making the pick or trading down, whatever the case may be. But I love that range of the draft. I like just the way it's playing out now, and that's not to say that it is going to play out that way, because we all know these values are going to change. Players are going to go up and down the board. But you just listed off in those player profiler rankings, like Devin Neal, Dylan Sampson, Ollie Gordon. Hell, I'll throw Cam Scatabo in there. I don't know where he's going to go. A lot's going to depend on, if he runs a 4.7, his value might tank. If he's in the 4.6s or maybe even the 4.5s, probably the 4.6s, then it's probably going to stay about the same. But those early second round picks, man, I want as many of them as I can get. I want as many shots as I can get. And I think that might be the actionable thing that you just mentioned. Like, if I can even move back 4 or 5 spots, like if I have the 110 or the 111, if I can move back to the 203 and get a player that's in a similar range for me, maybe pick up a 3rd round pick or something. I mean, anything's better than nothing if the two players are relatively the same value. So, to answer both questions at once, Matt, I think I disagree with you. I think I want as many of those early second round rookie picks as possible. But I mean, because this is the year, like, of all years, I feel like this year, those running backs in that range, I think, and there's so many good landing spots for them. Like, some of those guys have to hit. So.
I think at the end of the day, sometimes we have the burden of choice though too, and if the hype is so large on a second round pick that I can get a known commodity that I maybe shouldn't be able to get with that pick.
Yeah,
but I do understand the thesis of drafting, running backs, especially the Ollie Gordons, the Devin Neals, the Dylan Sampsons. I do like all three of those prospects, but I think at the end of the day, like, even an Ollie Gordon at 2-1, like, I don't know, just without knowing the landing spot, it still seems a little rich.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand it from both sides, and so I'll go ahead and nominate one of my players here, and I guess I'll follow Matt's lead on this. We're kind of cheating the game because Memphis is playing this by the book, and Matt and I are like, no, we'll throw rookie picks into the conversation. But I guess it is rookie season. So I'll go ahead and throw this to you, Memphis, because I'm curious what your answer is going to be, because I think I know what my answer is, at least right now. What do you do with the rookie 101 right now? Are you buying it? Are you selling it? Are you holding it? Like, what are you doing?
It's your league format dependent. If you're in a 1 QB league, draft Ashton, Jeanty, move on down the road. The premier running back in a 1 QB league is literally the cheat code. It can be offset a little bit if you're a super tight end premium 1 quarterback league, like a 1.75 or a 2.0. But that is pure gold. I mentioned earlier the running back rankings. I won't say where, but I've got Jeanty in my top 5 currently, like in a startup. If we were doing a startup right now, he would be in my top 5. But if you're in a super flex 2 QB league and you have the 101, you're probably drafting 101 if it's your 101 because your quarterback situation sucks. So I would be going out and looking for a team that had an embarrassment of riches at a quarterback, and I would try to be, acquiring a quarterback with that pick, because in a 1 QB league, running backs pure gold, especially if they have that Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley, Zeke Elliott pedigree coming out of college, which Jeanty's kind of in that range of hype. Then cool. But in a 2 QB league, you've got to get your quarterback situation straightened out, because if not, you're never going to compete, because you're never going to be able to catch up to the teams with the Josh Allens and the Jaden Daniels and the Lamar Jacksons. This is going to be tough. So that's how you get your team better, but you got to have the right customer, I guess that's to say. But yeah, it depends on your format. Is that a cheap answer? Am I giving myself too much wiggle room? Am I a politician?
It's not. It's funny to joke about how it's always like the cheap answer, but it's, at the end of the day, it's the answer that I, as the viewer, want to hear. And it's a cheap answer if you just say it depends on your league format and kind of leave it at that. But when you go into the depth that you did and describe the situations that you could find yourself in and what you would do in those situations, that is way more beneficial than just giving, a straight answer. And I completely agree with you with what you're saying. It is dependent. And when you're in a super flex dynasty, the balance changes so much. And if you're in a super flex dynasty and you don't have the quarterbacks, what it's like to go up against a team last year that had Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield, or Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield, or Jalen Hurts and Sam Darnold. Go ahead.
I mean, or the guy that took, Bo Nix at the 110 or the 111 in a super flex draft, and now he's got another quarterback one. Or the guy that maybe drafted Drake May. Those are the kind of targets that I'm going after, because I think you could get that quarterback and something on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with last year, with what we saw with like Sam Darnold, and every time a quarterback like Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield makes that resurgence, that is one more team that got a quarterback back into their, usable arsenal of players, if you want to call it that. And that's one more target to go out and get a quarterback to benefit your team. Like you don't have to just sit there and say, oh, what a lucky guy. He got Baker. Go out and get Baker Mayfield. That guy has 3 quarterbacks now.
Another trade you can make, let's say that maybe you love Omarion Hampton as much as the 3 of us. Hey, you know what? Sam Darnold signs a 3-year deal with the Raiders. I'm making this up or whatever. Hey, give me Sam Darnold in the 102 and one other thing for the 101. I'll still get a running back for my team. I'm still going to get Omarion Hampton, or I'm going to get Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson, because I really love that landing spot. I love their draft capital. But I've got me a bridge QB to start this rebuild. Give me a Bo Nix. Give me a Brock Purdy. Give me a Trevor Lawrence. Give me a Dak Prescott. And the 102, the 103, because you like that tier of running backs. Yeah, you hate to give up on a Jeanty kind of a guy. I can understand that. But there's so much more flexibility that you can have and you give yourself by just thinking through how you can use the 101 besides just hitting draft player.
It's such an important lesson to just get past the name value and wanting to take this hyped up player and really think about what's best for your team.
Yeah. And right now, according to Keep Trade Cut, I know they have the rookie picks in here, but they also have the rookies in here. And Ashton Jeanty, we all know, is the 101. He's player 17 right now, RB3. He's ranked right behind Patrick Mahomes. Essentially, and I don't know if you could pull this off, but if you could trade the 101 for Patrick Mahomes, I'd do it. That's where I would be with that, especially in a super flex. Obviously in a super flex.
I'm not trying to be the guest that turns this into a 19-hour podcast. You guys probably got shit to do, but we'll just go. Would you rather have Jeanty or Jordan Love?
Jeanty. Matt, you're muted.
Jeanty.
Drake May or Jeanty?
Drake May.
That's where I go. Drake May.
I agree. What about Kyler Murray?
Jeanty. But I'm jaded on Kyler Murray.
I understand, but you see,
Kyler Murray.
What do you have to add to the 101 to get Justin Herbert?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a stretch. Again, this is where I always say on our show, put your GM hat on. You have to become a salesman or a saleswoman. You have to put your salesman cap on, and you have to go out and proactively look for the right customer. Because there's 11 other, if you play in 12-person leagues, there's 11 other GMs in that league. But if you go out and proactively go shopping, and then you can start looking for other things. Are they a hype beast? A hype beast being someone who has to have the latest and greatest. There are so many ways you can finesse this. That's why I love Dynasty.
Yes, that's why Dynasty's the best. And that's why you should like and subscribe as well to get more of the Dynasty Roundtable. And go subscribe to the Dynasty Warzone podcast as well on their YouTube channel. So let's do one more round. Let's go around one more time. Rapid fire. At least let's attempt rapid fire, because that's typically how rapid fire goes. So Memphis, give us one more player that you want to talk about tonight.
People aren't going to like this because he was a bit of a hype beast last year. I'm selling Marvin Harrison Jr. And there are one of two reasons to sell a guy. You think that you're selling because they still have really good value, but they're coming up toward the end of their lifespan. Think of like a Saquon Barkley. Love Saquon Barkley. Career year Saquon Barkley. Not the healthiest guy around, 28 years old at the running back position. Only so many Derrick Henrys in this world still kicking ass at 30, 31 years old. With me, Marvin Harrison, it's like, well, it's the sophomore year. He's going to, do this. And my question is and feel free to answer, guys. Did his quarterback change? No. Did Trey McBride leave? No. Did they get a new offensive coordinator? Still no. So if nothing changes, nothing changes. But he came out with that Buckeye on his helmet. He's got a Hall of Fame father, and he's a fine player. But if you can get anyone to give you anywhere near what you got out of him last year, I'm selling. That's Trey McBride's offense. You're hoping for Rashee Rice to what peak Travis Kelce was, or what Julian Edelman, and they're different players, but you get my point. Where the tight ends, the focus, Julian Edelman to Rob Gronkowski. That's what Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be to Trey McBride, because Kyler Murray, short guy, he likes that short to intermediate stuff. That's where Trey McBride kicks ass. So I'm sorry, he's never going to be the number one option on his own team. He's never going to be worth probably more than he is right now. That's why he's a sell. And I'm not a hater. His dad is one of my top 3 favorite wide receivers of all time. By the way, great little bit of stat history for you. His dad had 8 straight 1,000-yard and double-digit touchdown seasons. Did that 8 years in a row. Antonio Brown didn't do that. T.O. didn't do that. Calvin Johnson didn't do that. Marvin Harrison Sr. did. He's one of my favorites. It bums me to say it. I'm selling Marvin Harrison the deuce.
I guess I got to be careful what I say about Marvin Harrison Jr. given what Marvin Harrison Sr. has done to adversaries. But yeah, I tend to agree that is definitely Trey McBride's offense. And Seth and I have been talking about our concerns about Marvin Harrison Jr. from honestly like really early on last year.
Yeah, no, it's funny, like just how Dynasty works, because, just looking at some of these player values, like I would say another player, and this is not who I'm nominating, but I mean, Rome Odunze didn't have a good year either. I mean, he had some moments, but again, that's another player who is top 10 draft capital, but that's a player that his coach did change for the better, and the situation did change for the better.
And what people don't realize is they're about 2 weeks away, because you're listening to the Dynasty Roundtable. And if you'd been listening to the Dynasty Warzone, you would have heard Jerry and I say this. People are going to realize in about 2 weeks that Keenan Allen's a free agent. And when Keenan Allen goes away, more targets open up for the guy they took in the top 10 last year. It only makes sense. And I've already heard it. And we actually said this a month ago in the Dynasty Warzone. you're going to hear Rome Odunze called this year's Jackson Smith and Jigba until you want to puke in your hat, because it's going to be the most common narrative you hear in fantasy, especially once redraft season gets here. But yeah, Rome Odunze, now you still have time. There's still some value there, but yeah, it ain't going to last long.
Yeah, my point in saying that was, and I know Marvin Harrison Jr. got 116 targets, but Rome Odunze got 101. Not a lot of people know that. So both had disappointing rookie seasons. The difference is one player's situation changed dramatically with the head coach and Keenan Allen leaving, and you better believe if the Bears take a wide receiver in the top 10, I'll throw the remote at the TV. If they take anybody under 270 pounds, I might throw the remote at the TV, because they need offensive linemen and defensive linemen. They have DJ Moore. They have Rome Odunze. They're good at wide receiver. Tyler Scott's a nice little player. They might take somebody later or sign a minor player, to fill their wide receiver 3 role. You're absolutely right about Marvin Harrison. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. And I think it's much more reasonable to expect Rome Odunze to take that leap in year 2 than it would be for Marvin Harrison. Not to say he's going to have a bad season, but I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut right now. I mean, there's 20 spots in difference in the rankings. And to me, it's a very similar players with very similar quarterbacks. The difference is one's going to have a much clearer pathway to opportunity with an offensive head coach that, you say what you want to if he's a hot name or whatever, but that Detroit offense put up some points. So I'm just saying, I think that's a trade I would make, and I would get something on top of, Rome Odunze to give up Marvin Harrison Jr.
If Keenan Allen leaves, which I think is likely possible, he's leaving behind 121 targets, and that's 121 targets, and he didn't play 2 games. He missed 2 games with injury, so that's a lot of targets going back into that offense. I mean, is it fair to say Rome Odunze could get 40 of those? I think that's a fair number, 30 to 40. So now you're talking about a guy who could go from, what'd you say, 101?
101.
So you can go from 101 to 141? Yeah, sign me up. Yes, right here. Sign me up. I'm in. Is that your buy?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. Yeah, Rome Odunze. Give me Rome Odunze. I want Rome Odunze. Matt, who's a player you want to nominate? And we're doing terrible at rapid fire, but who's your next player? But we're trying here. Rapid fire's tough.
I won't go too much into why I'm selling Garrett Wilson, but wide receiver 13 on Keep Trade Cut. I don't like players that we have to continuously make excuses for, because eventually the buck has to stop, especially when I can't make any reasons for things to turn around. So what can I say about the Jets that is definitively going to be better than last year, which happened to be his best finish at wide receiver 18 in fantasy points per game? There's just not a lot there. If I can trade Garrett Wilson to get some of the assets listed below him, particularly Rashee Rice, I would happily do so.
Yeah, gosh. I do like Garrett Wilson, but what are the Jets going to do at quarterback? It's like, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers was pretty awful last year. But
well, I will say this. I just did a little quick research. Garrett Wilson turned the 5th most targets in the league into wide receiver 10. And I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Jets, but even at 41, they're likely not as good as Aaron Rodgers. So targets are great, but if you can't do anything with them, or you're not scoring touchdowns, at least not at a reasonable volume, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I don't understand. And again, I swear I'll do better at rapid fire, but just go look at his stat line for the last 3 years. Anybody listening to this or watching this? How does somebody who gets 147, 168, 153 targets and your best finish in fantasy points per game is the wide receiver 18, which was last year? I don't get it. Like, yeah, it's somebody help me. I'll go ahead and nominate. I already talked about Rome Odunze, but I want to hear what you guys are going to do with Ladd McConkey, because I like Ladd McConkey. I think I want Ladd McConkey on my Dynasty team. but I have a hard time thinking that Lad McConkey's value is going to get any higher than it is right now. Currently, he's wide receiver 12 according to Keep Trade Cut. He's player 29 overall. He's ranked right behind. He's sandwiched. This is perfect. He's sandwiched right between Jackson Smith and Jigba and Garrett Wilson. I would take Lad McConkey in a heartbeat for Garrett Wilson. I just have a rough time seeing him getting up to the next tier, especially considering I think the Chargers are probably going to be in the market to add some more target competition. So that leads me. I think I'm a hold on Lad McConkey for now, lean sell. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you see wide receiver 12, you start thinking, yeah, maybe I should lean sell. And I'll keep bringing up Rashee Rice until the cows come home because I think he's the perfect option down there, wide receiver 17. I would take that trade in a heartbeat. But sometimes I'll speak to why you might want to hold him. And sometimes you don't want to get too caught up in the whole like value, like, oh, well, can he become wide receiver 8 or 7? Is he going to help you win a championship? And depending on what the Chargers do in the draft, I personally would argue, regardless of whether they add a receiver or not, Lad McConkey can help you win a championship. I don't think there's any elite assets that the Chargers would attain in this cycle that would lead me to believe that someone's going to take the go-to role away from Lad McConkey. So I think he certainly can be a hold. If you have a championship win now roster, there's nothing that I would say you are forced to sell because of the return on investment, so to speak. But especially if you are a team like you're looking in the mirror saying, I probably can't win this year, then yeah, like Lad McConkey's a great option to sell right now because of where his value's at.
I'm holding. He just feels like Justin Herbert's guy. I don't want to go because of his ethnicity that he's a Cooper Kupp type, but he just feels like a Cooper Kupp type, a very solid 15 point per game wide receiver. And to put that in perspective, I know it was a down year for CeeDee Lamb last year. He had 17.5 a game. Now, Lad McConkey's never going to reach that heights, but he finished the season last year as wide receiver 12. I've always said a top 12 at any position's a blank one. In this case, he's a wide receiver 1. And I know I looked at Player Profiler. He's, wide receiver 20. I'm holding. We already talked about how none of us are super hyped on this rookie class. And let's be honest, do you guys see a Jim Harbaugh team going skill position outside of running back in the first 3 rounds? I don't. They're likely to lose Khalil Mack. They're likely to lose Joey Bosa via trade. What's Jim Harbaugh going to do? He's probably going to draft an edge rusher or a defensive lineman. Then he's going to go an Omarion Hampton or a Caleb Johnson in round 2. And is there a 3rd round or 4th round or a 5th round wide receiver in this class that threatens Lad McConkey? No. So I'm all aboard holding on to Lad McConkey. I don't know that I'm buying, but I'm definitely not selling.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I have a ton of Lad McConkey, and not for good reasons. I probably should have taken Brian Thomas Jr. When I had the choice, but I took Lad McConkey. That's a mistake I made. So I have a ton of him. So that's a question I had is like, what do I do with some of these? Do I get rid of some of these shares? But I think I'll hold for now. But anyway, Memphis, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tell the people one more time where they can find you and your content.
Dynasty Warzone. You can follow the show at Dynasty Warzone on Twitter, X, Twix, and then playerprofiler.com. We do, if you want to watch the show live, we live stream Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central on the Player Profiler Now Plus YouTube channel. It's a newer channel. We're trying to grow it. That would be awesome if you stop by and subscribed. Turn the notifications on or off. And then the Dynasty Warzone. We have our own YouTube and podcast feeds. I just ask that you subscribe to both because not only will you hear me, and I can make any show go along, you will also hear, again, our buddies at the Dynasty front office and the rookie rundowns. But you can just follow me on Twitter at DWZ Memphis, where you'll find I do a poor job of promoting just about everything. But there you go.
All right. Well, Matt, anything to promote real quick? I don't want to leave you in the lurch there.
You can follow me on Twitter at Babbage_Matt10, where I also do a pretty bad job at promoting most things. I will say, as much as it's a bad thing, I'm going to spin it in a good way. I'm on social media about 90% less than I was 4 years ago. And I am much happier for it, although it is part of a decent part of our responsibilities here with growing our channel. So maybe I need to tweak it up a little bit. But you can follow me there at Babbage_Matt10 for football and hockey takes occasionally. Seth, I found a way to work it into the show again. And yeah, that's it. Stay tuned for all the great stuff that Seth and I are cooking and getting ready to release here in the next couple of months.
Yeah, if you're playing the Dynasty Roundtable drinking game, you have to shotgun a beer because Matt mentioned hockey. So you can thank Matt for that one. Follow the show on, or rather, subscribe to the show by clicking the subscribe button. Click the like button. Do it now. Go also do us a favor. Go subscribe to the podcast feed. We just launched that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, will be there. The Dynasty Roundtable. We're going to have more awesome guests like Memphis on the show. We're going to have Cody and Maddie post-combine to talk rookies, so you're not going to want to miss that. You're going to want to be tapped in for all of it, so subscribe now. Click the alarm bell to be notified when we go live, when episodes are posted. And until next time, nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers, okay? I don't care that Memphis thinks that he's going to play for Tennessee. I hope he goes and plays for the Alouettes or something. Get him out of my life. I don't need Aaron Rodgers anymore. He can go into a darkness retreat forever. And so anyway, until next time, nobody cares about him, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye, everyone.